In every era, there is a need, a spark, an instinct that brings us together to imagine and to innovate. This hasn't changed. What's possible has. We create technology that makes our world better. Ideas that move us, empower and connect us. But great ideas cannot thrive alone. They need to be shared, challenged, refined. Through our insight and collective curiosity, we advance and grow. New solutions, new directions, new answers. We do that here, together. This is the age of connected intelligence. Welcome to the IQ era.
Please welcome Natasha Lomas, Tech Editor at Euractiv.
Hello, welcome. My name is Natasha Lomas. I'm a journalist and tech editor for Euractiv, and I'll be moderating this next hour of conversations on rewriting the playbook as we hear from frontier companies that are harnessing artificial intelligence to reshape entire industries and reimagine how we work, create, and play. AI is already changing so much, but this current wave of change looks like just the beginning. For this keynote session, we're focusing on enterprise software first, kicking off with a panel discussion on building AI agents that drive real business growth. And for this topic, who better to join us than Brett Taylor, CEO of Sierra, a Silicon Valley startup that's using agentic AI to transform customer service. Brett is also, of course, chairman of the board of OpenAI. Also on the panel is Singtel CEO, En-Tian Chong. Singtel is a recent customer of Sierra, joining hundreds of others, applying its AI agents to change how they're talking to customers and even what they know about customers. While Sierra is only a little over 2 years old, the market for applying this technology has been developing at a very fast clip. So lots to talk about. Please welcome Brett and Tian Chong. All right, so let's start with a definition. Everyone is using the term AI agents right now. Brett, when Sierra says agent, what do you mean specifically, and what separates a true agent from just a workflow automation or an LLM wrapper?
So the word agent actually comes from academic circles, and it comes from the word agency. And really simply put, I think it's a form of software that has some degree of autonomy to reason and take action autonomously. And that's very different than software from 4 years ago, which were basically really fast rule-following engines. If this, then that. In the case of Sierra, we're focused on just one part of the market, which is helping make AI agents for customer experience. So if someone were debugging a broadband connection for a Singtel customer, that's sort of troubleshooting and debugging, and it's really useful to have some agency in that because not every technical problem can be diagnosed with a simple deterministic set of rules. So we've really opened up the door to have agents going from simple transactional things or IVR systems like press 3 for service to these agents that can truly be creative. And so in the context of Sierra, we're helping people replace IVR systems with things that sound quite human, that speak Singlish, that can actually help you with your subscription, help you debug your internet access. And I really think the key comes from autonomy. But for consumers, I think what it means is you don't have to wait on hold, which is not really a technical definition, but I think a remarkable new opportunity, particularly in the telecommunications industry.
And Tien Chong, from a customer perspective, what made this feel like an agent rather than just software?
Well, for me, if you talk about the transformation with AI agents, I think the bigger topic is really for a company to think about. When we started working with Brad, the journey started with understanding what it took to be an AI native company. So I want to be able to maybe say a few things upstream. Our thinking was first, it starts with how do we transform as an AI native company before we talk about the agents and all that, you know. So for us, the journey started with understanding that there were a couple of ingredients that we needed to make this successful. The first one was to have a vision that had the AI at the center of the strategy. So we did a lot of thought around enhancing our vision, you know, and how we want to be an AI-first telco of the future at Singtel. So that was the first thing. And then, of course, then we realized that in order to do transformation with agents and other elements of the AI, it has to be leader-led or CEO-led. So that was the other big thing that, that dawned on us. So I led the transformation, and along with that, then we did an organization change where I did not want the AI initiative to be buried, if I may say it this way, 2-3 layers underneath me. So I created a head of AI and data analytics reporting to me directly. And so those were some of the things that had to be in place before we started embarking on the agent journey, you know, so to speak. And of course, one more important thing was the data and data architecture underneath the transformation or the agents, had to be worked on as well. So the AI agent will only be as good as the data, So we also did a lot of work around that.
But Brett, I also wonder, how do you conceptualize this technology? I think Anthropic's Jack Clark has talked about thinking of AI agents as akin to troublesome genies, which is an interesting
Troublesome?
idea. Troublesome because they need very good direction to get them to do exactly what you want them to do, right? So what's your metaphor?
AI is imperfect. What's interesting about AI compared to technologies that preceded it is that it's non-deterministic. And what that means is you can have the same conversation 2 times in a row, and it might be subtly different. But if you and I had 2 conversations over a course of a couple of days, they wouldn't be exactly the same either. So I think there is some authentic and genuine risks with AI because of its imperfections. But I also think if you think about any interaction you have with a salesperson or a customer service representative, you don't really necessarily hold humans to the standard of perfection. And in fact, we recognize that most of these interactions, with those imperfections comes the ability to be dynamic, to be multilingual, to be fluid, to be empathetic. And all of those things are sort of tied up in the same technology. The way I think about it from first principles, though, is not necessarily the troublesome parts of it. If you think about the cost of fulfilling a phone call, and it obviously varies in Singtel across all the different brands within the Singtel group, but it can cost a lot. It could cost 10 euros just to have one phone call for many, mobile operators. Most interactions aren't actually worth 10 euros. And so as a consequence, most people think of their customer care or customer service as a cost center. But in the world of mobile operators, you have subscribers. And what you're most interested in is retaining those subscribers. So if we can reduce the cost of a single phone call from, say, 10 euros to 50 cents or 25 cents, or over time, maybe 1 cent, how can you reinvest that budget to drive customer loyalty? So while there are some opportunities for this AI to improve without question, and we're still in the very early innings of this as a technology, I think it's really inverting the way I think you can think about customer care, and it's going from being a cost center to something that can reduce churn, for something that can do sales, which is something that we've talked a lot about, and really start to think if you bring the price of a phone call down to the price of a page view, how could you reimagine your business, particularly for subscription businesses? And I think that's really exciting. So my view is that there's some risks to this technology, but I think there's a lot more opportunities, particularly in subscription businesses. And I think that's why you're seeing so many of the operators represented here at Mobile World Congress adopt the technology so aggressively.
It is a developing technology, as you say. If we have to put the cutting edge on a utility scale, I mean, where are we? Maybe at the useless end we would have Clippy, and at the other end we'd have Skynet. You know, where do we sit on this scale now? What's the cutting edge?
I think if we paused model development, meaning the state-of-the-art models today, GPT 5.3, I don't remember what version Opus is on. If we paused it, we would still have trillions of dollars of economic benefit, even with current technology, in large part because if you look at the major, I'll say, industrial applications of AI, coding agents, software engineering, customer service, legal, most of the technology has yet to be deployed. We're still in the very early phases of this deployment. So I think through the lens of time, if we were here 3 years from now, we would view this point as very early on the maturity curve. But not only that, the technology is improving very rapidly. Even over the past 3 or 4 months, the sophistication of the latest models to generate software has changed, almost a step change function in maturity. So you combine the fact that we're in the very early stages of adoption with the fact that the technology is changing rapidly, and I think we are, if we were in a game with 4 quarters, we'd be in the first minute of the first quarter, in my opinion, on the sort of maturity scale.
Okay. So the focus of this panel is how AI can drive real business growth. Tian Chong, how do you see these agents moving customer service from a cost center to driving growth?
Well, I see agents being able to drive from cost centers to growth if we're able to do a couple of things, right? I think the first one is right now, the way we're thinking about it at Singtel is at first it started with agents working on various touch points. But really, over time, we need to get the agents to manage the journey end to end in order to move from just a cost center to really driving growth. The reason is because we think that customers look at our company as a single journey, whereas our company internally, I think what we see is like 5 departments, and it's really to break the silos. So the key here is to be able to get, in Singtel's case, right, what we're trying to do is to reimagine the workflows and to be able to have a front. I mean, Brad and I were talking earlier about how Sierra plays a role as, say, in the front door to handle certain touch points. By the way, our customers come in to us through an omni-channel, right? They could be coming to the company in an app, through the portal, in a retail shop, etc. But they come in through a front door, and the idea here is we need to then have to imagine what a discover, buy, care journey is like in the company, right? Customers want to discover, for example, all things Singtel, be it mobile, broadband, TV. They want to be able to buy on demand or raise a ticket to care for something. And then the idea here is to move to growth, we have to be able to get this seamless customer journey. So it's about stitching together a master orchestrator agent, one brain that's contextualized behind the front door, to be able to work with many specialist agents across the BSS, OSS network, and various systems, so that we can serve up a contextualized answer or to a discover, buy, care journey, so that we can do that. And while we do that, what we know is that generally if NPS goes up, then customers are more loyal, and then we can drive more growth. And also, of course, if Sierra agents are successful, then I can free up my agents' time as well, right? So that the humans can spend time on the higher added value stuff to also upsell and cross-sell better. So it's a combination of these things.
Has there been a measurable commercial impact for Singtel yet, or is it still too early in the deployment?
Well, we are also early in our journey. I think we've made some progress, but what I just described is a vision that we want to navigate towards with strong partners like Sierra. Mm-hmm. It takes time to actually train the model and build out towards that vision, but we are determined in order to forge our way there.
Brett, Sierra's customers, there are many, they're using your technology for a lot of different things, Where's it having the biggest impact? Is this really about cutting costs or sort of lifting revenue, driving margin expansion, or pointing to new product lines? Where's the impact? What are you seeing?
I'd say all of the above, and I'll start with saving money and saving customers time, which is really around customer service. We're proud to partner with Singtel. We're proud to partner with everyone from companies like ADT Home Alarm Systems to Sonos speakers. So when someone has a problem with broadband or someone has a problem with their home alarm system, they don't need to wait on hold to actually solve their problem. And I think this is remarkable for me as a consumer, because the last thing you want to do when your phone is not working, your internet's not working, your home alarm system's giving you an error code that you don't recognize, you just want it fixed. But I think, as we were just describing, if you think about the opportunity for top line, if you expand your notion of these agents from being oriented around customer service to actually customer experience, can you create a front door for your clients that actually helps shepherd them through your entire customer lifecycle, as you said, from discovery through service? With a company called Rocket Mortgage, which is the largest consumer mortgage originator in the United States, we're originating billions of dollars of mortgages with their AI agent. We're doing sort of top line. Actually, there's a company called Redefine, which is a home search site in the United States that uses an AI agent to help you search for a home. And so whether you're searching for a new mobile phone plan, or searching for a home, or financing that home, or troubleshooting your mobile internet connection, all of those things can be done with an agent. And I think the opportunity that he just described is, so many companies sort of think of those as separate departments, and we ship our org chart. And so many of our customer experiences are a reflection of our organizations and not a reflection of the customer journey. I think the greatest opportunity with AI agents is it can be customer first, where you have a single agent that acts as a single personalized agent for each individual consumer, and can actually create a sense of simplicity where even maybe under the hood there isn't simplicity. It can integrate legacy systems. It can create a facade on perhaps an organizational structure that's more complex. And I think in the short term, the companies who do this will gain significant advantages over their competitors. They'll be able to serve customers in a lower cost way. They'll be able to reduce churn, but as importantly, they'll have higher net promoter scores. Over time, I think everyone will catch up. If we're 1995, we were sitting here having a panel about the web, we'd be saying how all of you need to make a website. With the benefit of hindsight, a website's not a competitive advantage, a website's an imperative, because if you didn't make a website and your competitors did, you'd fall behind. But in the short term, if you do and you actually realize these cost savings and you realize the net promoter score benefits, you can actually gain market share. And I think that's really how the market's going to play out, and I think that's the real opportunity for agents.
What about challenges? I mean, where doesn't this work? The AI agents are very suited to certain situations, perhaps, and others, there are more complications. So can you talk to us about some examples of where you think, actually this is not the best use of this technology?
Well, you mentioned something about if your data is not present, the agent won't work. I think these AI agents do need access to the underlying systems to be able to take action on your behalf. A piece of software can't walk into a warehouse.
Not yet.
It can't restart a truck. So I think right now AI agents are really operating in the world of digital technology. And so, I think for a lot of these agents where an agent can actually operate digitally, I believe there aren't really any practical limits to what they can do today. There's sometimes regulatory limits, within financial services and healthcare. There are some, practical limits to what they can do, but there's not really technical limits on a lot of them today. It doesn't mean it's easy, but right now the technology has largely caught up. I do think that for a lot of clients, there might be a legacy system, a mainframe computer that's never been connected to the internet. There might be 4 companies that you bought through acquisition. And I think those are often the limiting factor to finding success with these AI agents initially. What's remarkable, though, is it's not like every AI agent is perfect today, but even over the past year, the ability of AI agents to handle increasingly complex cases has really increased maybe 10 or even 100-fold.
Is this to do with reasoning models coming in? Or?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think for those of you who are software engineers, if you tried to get an AI agent to write a complex piece of software even a year ago, it would often fail. Now, if you install Codex or Claude and ask it to write an app, it will do so in an afternoon and often with very little oversight. I think that progress will continue. So will there always be some limits to the ability of these models to reason? If you're planning for the capabilities today, you're almost planning for the past. We're in a period of probably the greatest sort of Moore's Law where, I'll give you a practical example. 3 years ago, the state-of-the-art model was GPT-4 from OpenAI, and it cost $60 per million output tokens. A year-ish ago, maybe a year and a half ago, the state-of-the-art model was GPT-4o, which cost 60 cents per million output tokens and scored 50% higher on the human eval benchmark. So it was 100 times cheaper and 50% higher quality. So when you said, what are the limits? There are limits. It would be naive to say otherwise. But if you're a business person and you're planning for what will this AI agent be able to do next year, I think you should plan for the capabilities to probably be sufficient for most information-oriented tasks. It doesn't mean they will be today, but by the time, as we were talking about, deploying these AI agents is, it's quite a bit of change management for most organizations. You should plan for their capabilities.
Sure. Well, I'd like to add to what Brad said. I think Brad and I had a conversation about how fast the technology is evolving, and I think we know, right? Every 2 weeks, a new solution comes and all. But fundamentally, from my own observation, I think that the discussion first is, because most companies are seeing this rollout of AI as a technology rollout, talking about it's an arms race, about technology rollout. But I think that, in fact, if you want to have success, you should position it as an organization reinvention and not just about a tech rollout. Because if you get that part right, then the rest will follow. Because otherwise, people are working on just purely the tech rollout. And for the scale of transformation we're looking at, it doesn't quite work, So you have to look at it as an organization reinvention, fundamentally. And then, of course, this is a big part of it. So it's a bit like just a different insight, a different view of how you could approach this.
Well, as an example, and I'm sorry if I cut you off, if you look at the bank branches in the United States and Europe, when was the ATM invented? What, the 80s? 1980s?
That sounds about right.
There aren't fewer bank branches today, and there aren't fewer people in those bank branches. But with the invention of the automated teller machine, we automated one task, and competition between banks happened, and banks realized actually you could have people in those branches doing other things other than distributing cash. I think your point is absolutely right, that it's such an organizational transformation, because once you automate part of your business, the immediate second order effect is, what do you do with those efficiencies, and what will your competition do, and how do you reinvest to remain competitive in the market?
And I mean, the reason why I said it's an organization reinvention is because at Singtel, the company I run in Singapore, we have a 4-generation workforce. So in our AI team, or AI transformation, we're actually working on three big topics. One topic is about the use cases that spans across the company. The other topic is about the central tech stack, and Sierra is part of it. But the third topic, which is equally important and in fact more difficult, is the workforce transformation. How do you bring along a 4-generation workforce in order to transform? And there you're talking about many things. It's about education, it's about awareness, it's about a cultural shift, it's about a growth mindset. And there are many topics there that are quite difficult. In fact, along with that topic, we are working with our HR manager to start thinking about what the role of HR is very quickly in the next 1 year, what the org chart looks like. And you can imagine that we now will have an org chart where a manager will have human warm bodies and virtual agents in the org chart. So at that time, my question is, how do you scope the job, right? In the past, a job is scoped on size and complexity, right? A director, vice president, a senior vice president. But now, Someone could say, hey, boss, I got 100 humans. That chap there is younger than me, has 300 bots and one human reporting to him. Why is he a senior to me? How do you look at those topics? And also, I think there are all those topics that are equally important that you need to solve. And it's not just about getting our agents to work, but also being able to do the workforce transformation in tandem with that.
Now, buy versus build is a very interesting question in this context because, of course, AI is making it so easy for anyone to build services. Brett, what happens when anyone can just spin up an agent, and what happens to Sierra too? How do you build in this insanely dynamic environment?
I think it is useful to say the marginal cost of developing software is going down dramatically. Saying going to zero is probably an exaggeration, but we've taken something that was perhaps the most scarce resource with most companies, which is IT and software development, and we've made it plentiful. Whether or not it's actually free, it's not really free, but it's liquid. You can start a coding agent. You don't need to hire anyone. You can start as many bots as you want, as you said. That's upending the industry because we've taken something that was so scarce, and by making it plentiful, I'm not sure I even understand all the second and third order effects. I don't think it will fundamentally change build versus buy for most enterprises over time because software is like a lawn, you have to tend to it. And most companies aren't software companies. They provide internet access, they sell flowers, they sell groceries, whatever your business is. And software is merely a means to the end. I think what the world of, if you look back at 5 years ago, you had the infrastructure as a service market and the software as a service market. Where I think that will evolve to is companies, rather than buying software platforms like they have previously, is to buy agents. You might buy an agent that will help you generate leads for your sales team. You might buy an agent that helps answer the phone for your customer care team. You might buy an agent that helps you audit your financials at the end of every quarter. You might buy an agent that will help diagnose problems on your network. And I think that will be the new packaging for software. So I think I'll say, applied AI market will turn into a very significant market. Rather than being an app or a website, the atomic unit will be an agent. And I think that will be where I would say the applied software market goes over time. But I think it will be a very different shape of software. I think because it is easier to develop software now, a lot of the areas which were valuable in software are becoming more commoditized. But I think this new applied AI market will emerge. And actually, to go back to your original question on how early we are in AI, I would argue the reason why we aren't to the degree of adoption that we could be is because of the lack of maturity of the AI market. And if there were off-the-shelf agents for more of these things, I think companies like Singtel would probably be licensing a lot of them because it would accelerate that transformation.
All right, sadly, we are out of time. So much to talk about on this topic, but hopefully you'll come back next year for more. So thank you, Brett, and thank you, Tianchuan.
All right, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So our next speaker is NTT President and CEO, Akira Shimada, who will be giving a keynote presentation on how photonics unlocks an intelligent, power-optimized future.
The world runs on connections. At NTT, we reimagine what connection makes possible. We deliver end-to-end solutions, connecting societies and industries at scale. For decades, optical communication has been our frontier. Our advanced research is the foundation of systems designed to evolve with the world. Now, we're rethinking computing for the AI era and beyond, using light to move beyond the limits of electricity. With photonics, we are building infrastructure that can scale with demand and unlocking the potential of low-power optical quantum computing. Technology designed to adapt to society's needs, responsibility at its core. This is how we shape what comes next, innovating a sustainable future for people and planet.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Akira Shimada, CEO of NTT. Thank you for joining us at MWC 2026. Today, I'd like to speak on the theme of photonics unlock an intelligent power-optimized future. It's a focus on two innovations enabled by NTT's photonic technologies. Photonic computing for the AI era and optical quantum computing for the next era beyond AI. NTT is one of the top 3 global data center operators, supporting large-scale cloud and AI infrastructure. We are also a full-stack technology service provider, combining advanced technology with deep expertise. The infrastructure choices we make today define long-term performance, resilience, and sustainability. That perspective guides today's discussion. The AI market is growing at an unprecedented pace, expanding 24 times decade, and even up to 40 times when we come to generative AI. But this is explosive growth doesn't happen in isolation. As market accelerates, so does the need for infrastructure, more data centers, more computer servers, and vastly more computer power. And all of that comes with the cost, rapidly rising demand for electricity. This is where NTT steps in, offering a solution powered by photonics, using optical technology to deliver the performance AI needs while dramatically reducing its energy consumption. Today's AI infrastructure is still built around electrical wiring, and its power consumption is growing exponentially. NTT is working to replace electricity with optical technology, shifting from electrical to optical wiring to reduce power consumption to 1/100th by 2032. This is a foundation of ION, a next-generation infrastructure designed for world-changing demands. Why does replacing electrical wiring with optical wiring reduce power consumption? Because at ultra-high data speed required by AI, even very short electrical connections consume large amount of the power. In contrast, optical communication requires only minimal power even as data volume increases. Its efficiency does not depend on wiring length in the same way. ION represents the ultimate low-power infrastructure, replacing wiring with optical technologies, end-to-end from communication to computation. And the key technology that makes this possible is PEC, photonics electronic convergence. Now, let me explain how ION is being implemented in practice using optical technology. Our first generation device, PEC-1, which enables data center to data center interconnection, has already been commercialized. The next step is bring optical technology inside the data center. With PEC-2, we are introducing optical connection inside the computing system, first between racks, and then between boards with servers. Looking ahead to the PEC-3, we will move even deeper. We aim to replace electrical connections between semiconductor packages on the board and ultimately even the wiring between chips inside package with optical links. This is a path toward realizing true photonic semiconductors. And I'd like to introduce the device with the PEC-2, which is planned to be commercialized in fiscal year 2026. This is a switch equipped with our PEC2 devices. Again, commercial availability is planned for fiscal year 2026. We plan to combine NTT's PEC2 device with Broadcom switch data processing chip integrated into chassis manufactured by Acton. This system enables high-speed, low-power interconnection of large-scale AI supercomputers, supporting demanding AI workloads. One distinctive feature is its practical design. Each PEC2 device can be individually removed and replaced in the event of a failure, ensuring operational reliability in real-world environments. Beyond the 2026 release, we are advancing research and development to bring optical technology even deeper into the internal circuit of semiconductor to achieve further power reduction. With PEC4 targeted for 2032, we expect to realize up to 100 times greater power efficiency compared with conventional systems. We are also applying optical technology to quantum computing, the next generation of computing that many of you are already familiar with, dramatically reduce power consumption. Conventional quantum computers operate under extreme conditions such as ultra-low temperatures and vacuum environments. These requirements create significant challenges in scalability and power efficiency. NTT addresses these challenges through optical quantum computing. Unlike superconducting approaches, it operates at room temperature and under normal atmospheric pressure. As a result, it requires significantly less power, and its high expandability enables superior scalability. Today's quantum computers remain largely at the experimental stage and have not yet reached practical deployment. However, if we can scale to 1 million qubits, they will begin to address socially meaningful challenges such as truly personalized drug discovery for individual patients and creating next-gen energy resources. NTT aims to achieve 1 million qubits with optical quantum approach by 2030. Looking further ahead, we intend to realize 100 million qubits, leading the world in large-scale quantum capability. Optical technologies allow us to break through the limit of energy consumption and conventional computation. In the AI era, we need sustainable, scalable, and intelligent systems. In the quantum era, we unlock solutions once thought impossible. Our goal is clear: a power-optimized and sustainable society with light as the core. To know more about NTT's cutting-edge technologies, please come to our booth at 4-3. Thank you very much.
Should I go out? So for our last session today, we're shifting focus onto consumer AI. Now, we've all got pretty used to using AI chatbots these days, but our next speaker will be talking about where does this technology go next in an entertainment context. For generations, storytelling has evolved with technologies from stage to screen, from print to streaming, But with AI, we're entering a new chapter, interactive, personalized narratives where consumers are co-creators. Character AI sits at the center of this shift. It's vying to build an AI-native entertainment platform, leaning into digital storytelling and content creation, and designing new opportunities for community building and revenue generation. For a flavor of what they're doing, we've got a short video to show you. Please roll the video now.
Pick your character. Pick charm, pick cool, pick chaotic. Pick character AI. Pick world building or world breaking. Make a capybara loving night. Pick chats and turn plot holes into portals. Pick characters and rewrite reality. Sip secrets in cafes. Break curses at sea. Steal hearts in palaces. Pick a community with fan feeds, creator worlds, and shared myths. Pick your favorite story or pick it apart. The choice is yours.
All right, joining us to talk about this next act of entertainment, AI creativity, and the future of storytelling, please welcome Karan Anand, CEO of Character AI. Welcome. Hello. Now, I don't want to make any assumptions about the MWC audience, but people here may not be so familiar with your app, so maybe you can tell us who is the typical user, and what are they doing on your platform? Paint a picture for us.
Indeed. So Character AI is interestingly born before ChatGPT came out, so this was the first avatar of AI, and instead of using it to solve math problems and learn language, people use it to have fun. So the typical demographics are 15 to 34, AI native, people who love to daydream, tell stories, create their own worlds. They come to Character, create a new character, or pick from one of the 100 million characters already on the platform, and jump straight in to create stories, role play, fiction, and increasingly, that's the gaming platform. That's their entertainment platform. So think of if Netflix, Roblox, and TikTok had a baby, that's what Character AI would look like.
Wow, that's quite an image. All right, so now we're going to talk about AI storytelling, but first, Character AI itself has quite a story arc already, and you're basically in the middle of a business transformation journey. Tell us what you're trying to achieve.
Character AI was born as a foundational lab, so similar to OpenAI and Anthropic. Noam Shazir, who is the founder, he wanted to build AGI models, and we quickly realized that it's very expensive to go do that as a startup, and so he went back to Google. But through the company, Character AI, in addition to models, this amazing application got built, which was essentially how people started experiencing the use of AI, but for entertainment. So that was happening. It was initially both a foundational model lab and a consumer app company. After the transition, when I stepped in, it became very clear we're going to be the leading consumer app for entertainment. And what the transition really is, you start by talking to a chatbot. So initially, it's like simple back and forth conversation, except that these conversations go on for a long time, sometimes a few hours. And then increasingly, people are going from chatting with those bots to imagining entire scripts and comic books and videos out of it, so short videos come out of it. I think the most common theme across all of them is this is not entertainment that's being fed to them, like social media. This is entertainment that they are co-creating. This is the fandom, the fiction they're living either creating and or living in it themselves. So that's a completely new genre of what we expect the world of entertainment to look like. And actually, it's a precursor to not just entertainment. If there are people who are in marketing and other functions here, that's exactly what your advertising and marketing will also going to look like. So what we're seeing in entertainment with Character essentially is the precursor to what all forms of media and entertainment is going to look like.
Now, one reason for this shift away from AI companionship, sort of open-ended AI companionship, to more structured AI entertainment is broadly safety-focused. Your chatbot did run into critical attention over child safety risks, including to teens' mental health. How has that experience shaped the company's view of how to safely harness AI's creative potential?
I think safety and AI are very, very intertwined, hard topics to have a discussion on, simply because it's a very new technology. I was listening to Brett talking, which is AI is not perfect. I think it's anyone who claims otherwise either hasn't yet played with the technology or hasn't really put it to use at scale. So similar to that, Character AI, when it was launched, the team did a fantastic job in putting all the guardrails on safety, but also then realized that there are so many different ways people will push your AI use. And the longer you have access to a chatbot, and you can try this with ChatGPT or Gemini, the more you can keep pushing the AI chatbot, it can go out of what's called safety alignment. So, which is still a very evolving area of research in the community, which is how do you make sure that AI, with all its context, all its memory, always stays on task. So that's the kind of challenges even Character AI ran into. And that's the reason why we decided to completely exit chatbots for under 18 users, because the longitudinal impact of using chatbots is just not understood well enough. I think that's one thing our generation is now finally learning from what happened in social media, which is instead of trying to build safety after the fact, AI is both extremely powerful and non-deterministic, that we have to think about safety from day one.
And when you turned off the open-ended chats for under 18s late last year, or you started it, I think that was the process, you said you'd be interested in seeing how the broader industry responded. So how have other players like OpenAI and Meta responded? Have they done enough on this safety point, in your view?
It's a great question, because we were the first ones to make that bold stance, which is chatbots for under 18s, not the right technology to give them now. To my very, very positive vote of confidence, Meta, which has the largest surface area of any of these consumer apps, after 3 months of us announcing, they followed suit. So Meta did ban chatbots for under 18 users as well. OpenAI doesn't do that yet because they don't claim to be a chatbot. They're more like a utility application. The one application I hope that would do that is Grok, but I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah. So as we saw in your video, the product does blend a number of elements now, interactivity, social media style feeds, gaming aspects, multimedia, creativity tools. Is this a new kind of category that you're trying to establish, entertainment medium category, or do you see yourselves competing with these kind of social world builder platforms like Roblox, which you did mention?
So this is a new category, which obviously, there's only finite time that people have. So in some sense, the users of Character AI, there are about 20 million monthly active users who come to the platform every month, and the 6 million daily actives. They spend anywhere up to 2 hours a day with the platform. So in some sense, we are taking time spent away from traditional source of entertainment, whether it's watching TikTok or whether it's watching Instagram, Reels, into a lot more interactive fiction. So in that sense, it is essentially taking some of that space. But at some other level, it's fundamentally different approach to what entertainment would look like. So far, a studio, a director made a movie, and we all watched it. Then comes Reels. A lot of hundreds of people would create short videos, and we still all watched it. But it was still a broadcast media. What's changing now is people want control over what they watch, what they create, and remix it infinite number of times. That was not possible before AI, but with AI, that content creation cost comes down to near zero. And hence people are like, oh, I can be the author of my own world. I can be the creator of my own world. And I think this is a great sign because it does two things. One, it shifts the entire younger population from just passively consuming entertainment, which we all know how that played out, to more interactive. So everyone still has a gray cells engaged. They're still creating and building the worlds. So it does feel a lot more like gaming, but done in a lot more fan fiction entertainment format than this pure gaming. So this is definitely a new category. I don't think we have a name for it. So we all call it interactive fan fiction. But I think there will be a whole genre called interactive entertainment that we're all getting ready for.
I mean, a lot of social apps do have kind of content creation tools and features built in as well. I mean, there is a lot of crossover here, isn't there? How are you differentiating really?
I think the idea of content creation is going to be true. There'll be content creators creating advertising and marketing tools as well. So they're all kind of content creators. I think the biggest difference here is content creators which are very comfortable with others taking their content and remixing. So for anyone who is dealing with IP today, in the world of AI, you have to rethink what IP means. If I've created a short story book, and somebody does not like the way the movie ends or the story ends, and they remix it, who owns that IP? That generation of content creators is a very different generation of content creators that are now coming to the platform, which is probably a broader arc that we see. The population that we see, which is mostly 15 to 34-year-olds and increasingly 18 to 34-year-olds, this is AI native generation. For them, the idea of what is content, what is fandom, what is remixable, what is theirs, what is part of the community, is fundamentally different than the previous generation they've gone through. So a lot of those hard questions will be asked now on what does it mean to be a content creator in a world where content creation costs are down to zero, but creativity is still at a premium. And that's the generation we're dealing with.
One question I sort of have about this kind of entertainment platform play is where's your moat? What's defensible? AI capabilities are fast commodifying, as we know, and users can be very fickle about sticking around, as we know, maybe unless you're paying them a lot. Or like social, there are very strong network effects. So how do you, where's your moat? How do you defend this?
It's a great question. I think at Character AI, there are hundreds of small competitors that were born. And every time we get into a VC conversation, they're like, why can't X also do what you're doing? I think 3 learnings we've had, which hopefully are applicable to a lot of other businesses here as well. First and foremost is Character AI is a 2-sided ecosystem. There is a large ecosystem of content creators. These are AI-native content creators who are looking for AI-native consumers. And the fact that Character AI is not just an app built by Character, it's an app, but an ecosystem built by content creators and our users, gives us the network effects and the moat that we typically need to keep scaling. That's number one. Number two is it's still, even when the cost of writing code goes down, the natural effect is you want to add a lot more features. And that's exactly what consumers don't want. They don't want complexity. They don't want, because the feature is cheap or free to build, that you need hundreds of features, because complexity is still something the human mind has to deal with. Having taste for what is a good consumer product, which resonates with the users, is still at a premium. So that's the second thing, which is you need to maintain a very high taste and really, really listen to your audience. And we have a very, very, very vocal audience. We have 2.5 million Reddit subscribers and like another 500,000 on Discord. So constantly listening to that feedback loop is the second very critical part of why we succeed. The third one actually is very interesting, which is AI is very expensive. So anyone who's thinking of doing AI at scale, if you don't have a business model, it's very hard to keep scaling. Obviously, if you're OpenAI or Anthropic and you have billions of dollars, a different story, but for everyone else, you have to think about the cost of AI. So I think that's the reason why, instead of chasing just growth, one of the things at Character AI we started doing about a year ago was we started building a business model as part of the experience itself. So you saw in the video, we launched Charms. Every time you interact, you consume content, you are buying virtual currency, but over a period of time, you also share that virtual currency with content creators. That flywheel helps create a self-sustaining ecosystem, which I think is going to be the longest long-term moat, because, as I said, feature development is going to be pretty cheap. It's the other 3 things that really help us protect this being a differentiated app long-term.
I mean, there's a lot of expense here. AI is expensive. And I mean, content might be very important to sort of bring users in, and then you need IP partnerships. So how might a revenue share model work between Character AI and, say, a Hollywood studio? And what happens if these major IP holders want the majority of the upside?
So I think we have the first innings of this happening with the OpenAI and Disney partnership that just got announced. And as you saw, it was a 2-way partnership where OpenAI needs Disney as much as Disney needs OpenAI. And that's an interesting blueprint. I think ultimately the economics of rev share in an IP partnership world is going to go through a massive overhaul anyway, because it's not only the content that a studio owns. It's a content that their fans are further extending and remixing. Who owns that IP? And those questions have not been answered. You don't even have a way to track it, whether it's blockchain or something else that's going to help you track the lineage of IP. That also has to be answered. So I think overall, my sense is there's a high fixed cost of running AI. Everyone understands that, and hence users are willing to pay for it. Studios are willing to pay you for that as well. But over a longer period of time, the question will be, in an interactive entertainment world, there would be multiple parties, not just the studios, that will have to rev share. So overall, the economics have to make sense, and I think so far we've seen a very high propensity to pay by both users and also for the studios and IP holders. They're like, this is so new, yet we cannot afford to be sitting out. So they want to jump in, but my sense is this playbook will get written over the next 24 months.
All right, so as you're increasing complexity in the product in a way, bringing in these new features, I wonder also, how are you balancing engagement and safety considerations now in this new product as you add these richer sort of elements in? I mean, open-ended AI chats for teens were clearly an unacceptable risk, but entertainment has to be compelling, or it flops, right? So there's a balance here, isn't there?
It's a question that keeps us up all night, simply because a decision of what is acceptable content for you is different than what's acceptable content for me, than someone in a different country, different geography, different language. And in the past world, I come from a social media world, it was a Meta for a long time. This was a very hard problem to solve because we were running content classifiers which were very blunt, if you will. Luckily with AI, the problem and the solution is AI itself, being able to understand the context. I'll give you one simple one, where if you are talking about blood and gore, that's violence, but violence in a movie is acceptable. But violence in the case of self-harm or school shooting is a sensitive topic. It's not acceptable. How do you distill the context from the user, from the geography, from the character, distilling that in real time?
Problem, right?
That's a complex problem. So that's where a lot of our research and a lot of our safety work and investments go. And even we're a very small startup, like 75 people, but 20% of our resources actually end up going towards making the platform extremely safe, from the model to the guardrails we put together, or also the use cases we build. So every time we launch a short movie, a comic, we red team so much of it to make sure that it still does not lose its soul. So it's still fun. You can still talk about vampires. That's my favorite genre. I love vampires for some reason, and blood and gore come with it. But at the same time, we need to understand this is a vampire story, not a real human hurting another human. So I think that's a level of contextual awareness that AI has the ability to do it, but there's investment required in multilingual support, contextual understanding, data sets, and a lot of red teaming.
Because, I mean, social media has really failed to do this, right? It's a similar problem they've had, and they have not managed to moderate well.
I think the lessons we can learn from social media is that we thought about safety too late. It was not thought of as a big problem from the get-go. There was always community moderation and content policies, but realizing that when you have 2 billion, 3 billion people on the platform, you see the extreme versions of every risk vector being exposed very quickly. So that's the reason why, before we get to a billion people scale, we're trying to put all the safety guardrails from day one. And I think that's the lesson we've taken away from social media life is you don't retrofit safety. You have to build safety from day one. And that's the only way, especially with a powerful technology like AI, you have to get this right from day one.
And it is, to be clear, I think still the case that open-ended chats are available on the platform for the over 18 users, so that does still exist. So I wonder, do you worry that regulators are going to, get tougher on consumer AI chatbots in general? In Europe here, the European Commission is looking at digital addiction risks, and at the end of the year, they'll be presenting a Digital Fairness Act. Is this an area that, could be, something that you have to think about, have on your radar as regulators actually get tougher?
I think at Character AI, two things we've done I think well, in my opinion, is we've always encouraged the regulator conversation, and not just with the regulators, also with academia, because there's a lot of cutting-edge research and findings that come from academics. And we've always, so on our payrolls and with an advisory board, we have a bunch of researchers from top leading universities telling us what the cutting edge looks like. And I think ultimately it'll be a combination of, actually, if there's a fourth constituent, which is parents, which is a very important topic at some point to talk about, between academics, policy and regulators, the technology people, all of us, and parents, we really need to come together to go define how this thing should work, because any one constituent missing will skew the system pretty far off. But the good thing is, there's a lot of learnings we had from training our models for under 18, which also apply to over 18. So if you're over 18 and you use talking to chatbots, doesn't mean the safety problem goes away, because self-harm, loneliness, these are still very real problems. And that's the reason why making sure that we have all the guardrails for them is as big as an investment area as it was for under 18.
For you personally, I wonder how much of a challenge is it to be innovating at the cutting edge of this AI roller coaster, if we can call it that, while sort of, having to simultaneously invent the rules for how this stuff should work?
I think the one thing I've learned in AI is you have no time to sleep. Because you go to sleep and you wake up, there's a new model, there's a new paper, and somebody has figured out how to crack this thing which is seemingly impossibly hard to go do. So the speed at which AI is transforming is definitely unlike anything I've seen, and I have a lot of white hair, so you can see I've been in this space for a while. But despite that, I think staying current is pretty hard and pretty challenging. I think the only two things you can do is you need to understand your core really well. You need to understand your users really, really well. I think Brett was talking about this earlier as well, which is trying to do everything is very hard because your competition can very quickly nibble at your toes. So being very focused, in our case, we are very clear, even though our chatbots are powerful enough to do 50 different things, we are entirely exclusively focused on entertainment, because we will leave the math problems and coding problems to OpenAI and Anthropic to solve. We will solve entertainment.
One big piece, I think, of your safety story at least seems to have been settled recently. In January, you announced a comprehensive legal settlement in principle of all outstanding lawsuits filed by families. Has that now actually been confirmed? Is that settled, or is that still ongoing?
It is. I think we'll wait for a more official announcement about that. But I think, one, we've done a lot of work with the parents who've been, on the other side of the case to help not just, make sure that safety guardrails the characters put together are, best in class, but also shape the entire industry and regulation around that. So stay tuned for more announcements on that. But I think I'm very proud of the work that we've done, but also very grateful for the work that a lot of the plaintiffs did with us to make sure that we raise awareness on how critical this is. But more importantly, why everyone here, we need to get involved now, because this is not something that we can just assume somebody else will solve for us.
What about the pace of AI advancement? Does that create leadership anxiety? I do wonder how anyone can plan in this environment where things are just changing so quickly.
Yes, I think there's a Mike Tyson quote, which I keep using within my team as well, which is everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. And that's what happens with AI. You wake up and there's a new model, there's a new competitor. Somebody could wipe code an entire new category of apps overnight, and wow, there's so many ways you can get surprised. But again, if you lose sleep over that, it's kind of hard to keep up. So you really have to stay true towards what's one or two problems which are very, very deeply embedded with the users to understand, and you uniquely solve. If you stay true to that, luckily, we're still limited by human cognitive bandwidth to take on new apps. So, our 20 million users love character AI because we totally understand what they want, what they get, and we stay true to that audience. That has been the only playbook that's worked for us so far, and I hope we can keep that.
So MWC is a telco show, so here's a thought. As AI entertainment becomes more ambient, could a product like Character AI move beyond being an app to being something more embedded, say via a partnership, with telco device or OS level? So sort of thinking about how streaming moved from websites to TV, could there be some equivalent in your future?
So think of entertainment. Wherever you see entertainment today, assume Character AI can be there over a long period of time. Whether it's having a toy that is basically doing role play, or whether it is ambient screens in which you're part of the world that you're living in. I think all those are very, very much possibilities for Character AI models to be embedded everywhere. I hate using the word metaverse because a lot of connotation from that word, but think of these fictional worlds that people are creating. They are so immersive, people want to live in them. Today, they happen to be on a 2D screen on a mobile phone or on your desktop, but increasingly with ambient computing, with voice as a primary way of communicating, it'll be everywhere. So I don't think we'll be locked to screens anymore. Even on our platform, we do about 1 billion minutes of audio every year. So already people are breaking away from the screen, and everyone who's thinking about AI has to think about multimodality from day one, because people are willing to break away from the screen. Will it be audio? Will it be video? Will it be immersive? Will it be wearable text? I think all of that is going to be true. And we will keep up pace with wherever entertainment shows up. I hope we power interactive entertainment through that.
Are you curious about what role wearables might play in the future of sort of driving this next frontier of character-driven AI?
Imagine if you're doing role play, you have a band, and you can actually do a sword fight. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Would your glasses telling you, like, hey, how do you actually gameplay with AI? That's going to be real now. So luckily, the world models are evolving fast enough that this might be real, not in too distant a future.
So is this, you're not actively looking, but you've got it on your radar, essentially? Yeah.
It's very expensive. So I think right now we're very focused on going from text chatbots to images to videos to short-form video and comics. And hopefully embodying them in multiple devices will be a fast follow at some point.
And anything in recent AI developments that you're really excited about? There's lots going on in models, obviously.
I think so by the way, I had the nano banana moment last year. Hopefully everyone first was using AI and image editing, and they're like, this is good, but it's not great. And then nano banana happened, they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be very unreal. And the same thing is now happening with video models. The video models or word models are becoming so good that a series of prompts can consistently generate a very high quality video. And anyone who's not following what's happening outside of the US, Europe ecosystem in China, every time Seed Dance or Quen comes out or something, we pay attention. So I think the competition is very healthy, very aggressive, and the advancements in multimodal models is the one that keeps me the most excited.
All right, watch this space then.
Indeed.
All right. Thank you so much, Karan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
So that concludes this keynote session, and indeed all of our keynote programming now. So we hope you enjoyed these conversations and wish you a profitable networking lunch and a great rest of show across today and tomorrow.